So Karen.
Yes.
Karen, I'm coming to you from somebody who works in the marketing and communications field. I mean, how important is it for football associations or organizations to look a bit organized so that they are able to attract sponsors and partners?
So first of all, it's very important. It's one of the key things that any corporate look at, structure. And I think listening to Mohammed and Eugene, we can pick that the problem that is ailing our football across Africa is structure. So structure is always a very important thing because and you know who you can hold accountable if things were to go right or wrong. So in this case, it's very important. Structures are super important. One of the key things that any corporate will look out for. So if you have proper structures, I think you're going to attract as many sponsors as you can. And that way you also get to positively impact the sportsman and woman on the ground.
Okay. I think as to quickly look at some of the things that stood out in the just concluded AFCON tournament. Mohammed, I would want you to talk about some of the teams that stood out for you in the AFCON tournament. And then I'm going to cross over to Eugene to talk to us about some of the players that he thinks stood out for him in the AFCON tournament. Moha, which teams do you think deserve another second chance into the next AFCON tournament next year?
He's on mute.
Moha, on mute.
Thank you. So, for me, I'd just like to point out the fact that we witnessed the second edition of the expanded tournament has just, given a clear indication that it was important to expand this tournament, to give a chance to the so-called, smaller nations in football to participate and get a chance to compete and showcase their talent. And we've witnessed that again. I'd like to mention a few teams. One, Sierra Leone, for me, was the team of the group stage. I mean, they were in a very tough group with Algeria, Cote d'Ivoire, and I think Equatorial Guinea, if I'm not wrong. But they really put in a show. I think they had not qualified for AFCON in over 30 years, I think 3 decades or 4 decades. So for them to return and be able to compete with footballing giants such as Cote d'Ivoire and Algeria. I know they lost against Equatorial Guinea, but that was one of the teams for me for the group stage. I'd also like to give a shout out to Comoros. I know Eugene doesn't want to talk about this a lot, but Comoros really put in, and for Kenyans who thought those back-to-back games in the qualifiers was an easy win against Comoros, it just shows you the type of team they have. I mean, they have very technically gifted, good players. I think 90% of their squad plays in the French league, second tier and third tier. But it just shows you, I mean, they really put in a show in Cameroon. For them to go all the way to the round of 16 and put on a good fight against this team, the hosts, was impeccable. I mean, they were without a goalkeeper. They were down men. I think from the 20th minute, they played majority of the game with 10 men, and just lost the game 2-1. And arguably, I think they scored the best goal of the tournament in that match. That free kick was fantastic. The Gambia as well, fantastic debutants in the tournament, going all the way to the quarterfinals. Playing against Cameroon, the hosts, against 50,000 Cameroon fans. It was always going to be difficult, but again, they beat former champions Tunisia in the group stage. They managed to beat Guinea, who are, I think favorites also. I mean, they're an experienced team in African Cup of Nations. So for them to beat those teams to get to quarterfinals was a big achievement for them. And I can only see a bright future for this Gambia team. Malawi as well. I mean, this team has qualified for African Cup of Nations, but for them to get to the knockout stages, I know our league from Southern Africa can share how this for such a team. But for them to reach the knockout stages was fantastic. So for me, it's what makes this expanded tournament beautiful, for us to be able to see, there's everyone is equal when you get to the pitch right now, because the fact that Algeria lost to Equatorial Guinea in the group stage, one of the reasons the defending champions were eliminated in the group stage. Ghana, 4-time champions of the African Cup of Nations, eliminated by debutants in this competition. It's just mad, to be honest, to be there and experience all this. It's fantastic for me. So those are the teams that really, really caught my eye: the Gambia, Malawi, Sierra Leone, and Comoros.
Okay. Speaking about new faces in the tournament, and I think one thing that also stood out even in terms of players, there are players that we probably expected to shine better than others. But at the end of the day, there are those players that not many people were talking about, but stood out in the tournament. Eugene, apart from the likes of Vincent, Abubakar, Toko, Ekambi, who are some of the players that you think stood out for you in this tournament?
For me, my best player of the tournament is Issa Kabori, the right back for the Burkinabe national team. He's your locus classicus of a typical modern day right back. He's good in defending, very good in attack. He's a Manchester City player on loan at Troy. He's shown great talent, and I think in the foreseeable future, one of the key players for the Burkinabe national team. I also think that in a few years to come, he may be as good as Ashraf Hakimi. He was really good for the team going with flicking in the crosses. However, the problem for them was Abdul Tapsoba was not very clinical. Their strikers up top were not as clear as they were expected. If they had maybe a Salah, a Famara Diadu, maybe a more clinical striker, I'm sure Kabore should have had maybe about 4 or 5 assists to his name. Abu Gabao, the goalkeeper for the Egyptian national team, popularly known as Gabaski, is also one of the very good players of the tournament. I mean, his saves showed. He was one of the ones who saved Egypt. Egypt really did not play so much of good football. They had a very resilient defense. On few occasions where they were tested, Gabaski lived up to the billing. I mean, in the game against the Ivory Coast, he saved Bailly's penalty. In the next game against Cameroon, he saved 2 penalties against the whole nation when almost the whole country was against you. And he had the nerves, the energy, the ability, and he had the calmness. He was calm and collected and was able to help Egypt go to their 10th AFCON final. He was also superb for them. Mohamed Al-Shanawi, the other goalkeeper for the Egypt national team, was also superb. Then for the Burkinabe as well, Steve Yago. They have their left back, Steve, was also excellent. He was good. I think he reminded me of prime time Marcelo. Very good attacking, good in defense. I think the only terrible game he had was against Gabon, but any other game was fantastic. Then we have, maybe you mentioned him already, the Vincent Barker. I think Toke Kambi was also fantastic for them. I mean, he's the top goal scorer in the Europa League for Olympic Lyon. So I think he needs no introduction. Everyone knows him. Very quick with the ball, good with the ball at his feet. He has a good shot. He could curl the ball around. So a typical good player. Also, I think Ahmed Hegazi for the Egyptian national team. Egypt, I think, conceded only 2 goals in the tournament. And I think it was due to his leadership at the back. And that was what was lacking in the game against Senegal. They considered very early within 3 minutes, they had considered a penalty. I think save Gabaski's brilliance, they would have conceded very early. In less than 5 minutes, they would have conceded. Hegazi's leadership at the back, his experience brought, his calmness was able to drive the Egyptian national team forward, because Hegazi and Abdul Nomin, I don't think Egypt should have even gone past the round of 16 stage. I think he was one of those key figures. Then I'll go to Comoros, Yusuf Nchangama. Look at his goal he scored in the game against Cameroon. It was a very expertly converted goal. Showed someone who had practiced this for a very long time. It was someone who had practiced this for a long time, and he caught Andre Onana off guard. I felt he was great for the team. He was a breath of fresh air in this Comoros national team. One thing I should say about Comoros is I think this performance is no fluke. I think about a decade ago, the Comoros came to Ghana for Ghana to give them technical advice on how to develop their football to be among the favorites in Africa. Look, within 10 years, they've rather shown us the way to go. They beat Ghana in an AFCON, and they have taken Ghana back to factory settings. We now have to start all over again. It's fun how life turns in just a few years. Comoros to advice from Ghana, and I think now Comoros have given advice back to Ghana to go back to the grassroots and start rebuilding a goalkeeper for the Sierra Leonean national team. Yeah, I can hear you. Mohamed Kamara was also great for them. He was key in their game against Algeria. He made sure that Mahrez was off. The others, Slimani could not produce anything. Buneja tried all he could, but still the result. The former Liverpool and Tottenham Hotspur defender was really, really superb for the team. I think I will have to go on and on and on, but I think these are the players who were great as well. I think Collins as well was for the Cameroonian national team. But all in all, I think Kabore is my best player. Issa Kabore was my best player of the tournament.
Okay. There's a player that you've not mentioned, and I think Mohamed will speak about this in depth because I feel like he shares a lot of enthusiasm. That is Edouard Mendy. Mohamed, I'm surprised you've not talked about Mendy's performance in this tournament.
Mendy.
I think personally, watching all the Senegal games, going into the group stages, going into the round of 16 tie, I think Senegal had not conceded a single goal. So most people have underrated his tournament. I know there's a huge debate on the goalkeeper of the tournament between Abu Gabal and Edouard Mendy. I feel Abu Gabal has been very decisive in most of the games, but Edouard Mendy he's sort of that player who has always given you 7, 8 out of 10 from the first group game match to the final. I think that's why he's not caught the eye or the hearts of many as Abu Gabal did, because Abu Gabal, Eugene has said it very well. This guy, in the most crucial of moments, he turned up for his team. From the round of 16 to the quarterfinals to the semis against Cameroon, the hosts, packed stadium, lots of pressure, saving 2 penalties, and in the final as well, conceding a very early penalty during the 90 minutes during the game, and saving the penalty against Sadio Mane, who has had a fantastic tournament as well. He's been the most decisive player, I feel, in the tournament. But Edouard Mendy has been the most consistent in terms of performance, because you look at Senegal. I think up until the quarterfinal or semis, they had not conceded a goal in the tournament. So that speaks volumes about their defense, because obviously they had a great defense as well, and Koulibaly and the likes. So Edouard Mendy, I feel personally, he's a close second to Abu Gabal in terms of being decisive in games and results. But again, going into penalty shootouts against Egypt, who have never lost penalty shootouts in the last 7 times they've been in that situation, mentally it can really mess you up going into penalty shootouts against Egypt. So for him to remain calm and save a penalty as well, that set it up for Sadio Mane to win it for them, again, is huge. So I believe we, like Eugene mentioned, this tournament we've witnessed a lot of great performances from goalkeepers, because this is one of the tournaments where we've seen a lot of goalkeepers get man of the match awards as well. So we have to mention that. I don't have the exact count, but I feel I think we've had around 4, 5, 6 man of the matches that were goalkeepers, from the Sierra Leone keeper, from the Gambia keeper, the Guinean keeper as well, really good. And then we have the likes of Edward Mendy and Gabaski. So yeah, I know. I mean, Edward Mendy is a winner. I mean, we've witnessed it even at club level now. He's becoming a serial winner. So I feel he deserves everything that's coming his way. But in terms of goalkeeping, it's been very, very tight, to call it, Ashen.
Okay. Just before I cross over to the lessons that we probably learned from this tournament, and I'll want Eugene to come on to this one. I think in terms of Egypt as a squad, as we wrap up this segment, yeah, maybe as Egypt squad, there was a conversation about the fact that Egypt, for a larger part of the latter stages of the tournament, was trying to win the games through post-match penalty. And even when they lost to Senegal, people were like, you can't win, you can't survive on penalties for such a big continental competition such as AFCON. Eugene, do you agree that Egypt knew very well they had a good goalkeeper? And do you think that was their goal, to ensure that they were going to win all their matches via penalty shootouts?
Well, I will agree. First of all, I think football, the coaching point of view, is about strategy to build your team on your strengths and hide your weaknesses so you're not exposed. So I think basically that's what the Egyptians tried to do. And what they tried to do was to always frustrate the opposition, because the Egyptian attack wasn't as sharp as the opposition always. I mean, when they met Ivory Coast had a sharper attack than them. When they met Cameroon had a sharper attack. When they met Senegal also had a sharper attack. So what they do is they try to just frustrate your attack and slow down the tempo of the game, just to drag the game into extra time. And then for the North Africans, there's something they have. They are very concentrated and focused in extra time and penalties. That's where they are switched on. And that is where West Africans normally lose concentration and are mentally tired and physically exhausted. And then they give themselves away and they lose. Look at the game against Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast played virtually everything in the game, had most possession, most parts of the game. They had the ball. Egypt were behind the ball. Ivory Coast were determining the tempo of the game, doing everything possible to get the win. Egypt frustrated them. It took the game to penalties, and then Eric Bailly folded, and Gabaski had a day. So that is always what the North Africans do: try to frustrate the West Africans and take the game into extra time and penalties, because they know they are more focused and concentrated. West Africans, for whatever reason it is, cannot concentrate in penalties. They struggle a lot, and so that cost them. So for Egypt, that's what worked for them. If you look at it throughout the game, they had to go penalties, and the West Africans folded. Cameroon made, even though they're in Central Africa, they also made their mistakes. They flapped too. Bunasa even made a mistake with this penalty. He missed it. Gabaski was there to save it as well. So it worked for them until the last minute. And I mean, as a coach, you always like to highlight your strengths, to build your team on your strengths. So I felt well, from a footballing perspective, we wouldn't have loved Egypt to win as the team who has struggled throughout the competition through extra time and penalty to win a tournament. And I think they were served their own medicine in the end. So from the Egyptian perspective, everything worked until the last end when it failed. And I think everyone should try and do the same. You build the team on your strengths. When you think you don't have the players to go to extra time and penalties, then what you do is you kill the game in 90 minutes. So you don't take the game into extra time, because if Because had done that against Egypt, I mean, they should have been the ones being there in the quarterfinal. They didn't take their chances. They missed a lot of their chances, and that cost them. And that gave Egypt the belief into penalties. And mind you, Egypt has a very great record in penalties, I must say. So I mean, they had the confidence in this stage. And my highlight of the whole AFCON was when, after the player missed the penalty and Mane stepped out to pick the ball, then Salah began to cry. I mean, he knew it was over for him. It was over for Egypt. He knew Mane would not miss 2 penalties within a single game. And I feel happy for Mane on that score, because in the 2019 AFCON, he missed 2 penalties, I think, against Uganda. another team, and so he stepped down from his role as a penalty taker and let others take the penalties. I think in 2012 or 2013 he missed penalties again, and then he comes here and on the final within 5 minutes his country gets a penalty. He misses again, which means it looks like it was a curse for with Sadio Mane and penalties in the AFCON. And I think it was nice to break that curse and be the first player to hand over the AFCON title to go. Remember, they had other great players, Ali Cisse, Alhaji Diop, Khalilu Fadija, and all those great players could not win the AFCON. And if Mane was able to win the AFCON, that's a differential between Mane and the other players. So from the Senegalese perspective, it's been great. However, I think Edouard Mendy, in this tournament, Gabaski and the others were miles apart. We were miles away from him. I think even I would take Kamara over him, the Sierra Leonean goalkeeper. Let's look at this. Look at the kind of players he had ahead of him. He had the Napoli defender, Khalid Koulibaly, before him. He had Bounassa before him. He had Abdou Diallo, the PSG centre-back, before him. He had Saliou Ciss before him. That was a very formidable and resilient and reliable back four system. Look at the defense of some of the other teams. Those defense exposed the goalkeeper. So those goalkeepers were called to action a lot of times. Look at Gabaski. He was called to action a lot of the time against Cameroon by 3 goals, but Gabaski saved the day for the Egyptians. He was let me say, he was injured. He was half fit. He was not fit for match day, but he was forced to come and play, and he even managed to make saves on the day. I think Mendy really was not called to action any day until the final against them in the penalty, where he saved the penalty. And I think had he not saved the penalty, we wouldn't have been having this conversation. It would have been about Gabaski winning the tournament. So Mendy was called up on only one occasion. He delivered, but others had multiple situations where they were called upon and they delivered. So on that score, Mendy was nowhere close to even Mohamed Kamara and Abu Gabao. And I think CAF is subscribing to what UEFA does. I think a lot of the time, the big name players don't need to work hard to collect individual trophies or to garner individual trophies. A lot of the time, it looks like the budding stars, the unknown players, have to really work twice as hard as the established players or the awards. In some games I saw of Egypt, I saw of Guinea, for example, I don't think Naby Keita was as influential as some of the opposition, but maybe because he was a Liverpool star, maybe because Salah was a Liverpool star, one of the top 10 players in the world as a down, maybe I think CAF were pressured to give the man of the match to him, because I don't even understand how in the final Gabaski was given man of the match at the end of the tournament. I think it didn't make sense to me, and I think the CAF technical team didn't do justice to that situation in terms of the best goalkeeper of the tournament. Even the player of the tournament. I mean, it's hard to see a player score 8 goals in a tournament. I think the last time we saw that was in
Eugene, I've lost you for a bit.
1970. He doesn't merit him a player of the tournament. I think when else would he deserve? Maybe because it's Sadio Mane, he has that pedigree. He's worked hard in Europe, so maybe he got it because he is a certain Sadio Mane.
Okay, Eugene, you're going to be coming to there's some very important points that you mentioned there in terms of what CAF needs to do, which brings us to the main topic of discussion here, and which is the lessons that we can learn from this AFCON tournament. Karen, from a marketing and a communications perspective, what are some of the key things that you picked out from this year's AFCON tournament?
So I think I'll start with what we can all agree on here. With regard to structure, it's very important, and I think it was what has also ailed us here in Kenya in terms of advancing our football to an international level. We've seen also, not just in AFCON, what even happened in World Cup qualifiers. So it's very important for us to look into that as a continent, not just as a country, but as a continent, because these things cut across borders. Another thing I would say is it's important to have structures that work, not just structures, because we see, and structure is not just management. You can see even the security situation that was there, that we came to a point where we actually lost lives. So those structures must actually work in order to attract any kind of sponsorship that we may be wanting to be part of. And as I said before, corporates are very keen on such things because no one wants to be associated with something that may lead to the death of someone, or basically just some sort of disarray. So it's very important for such things to be looked into. We also need to also look at building talent from a grassroots level. Most of these guys playing in the international scene come from a grassroots point. We have some good players, yes, but we also have some new well-talented players. So it's important for, I think, countries to also invest in that. And I speak from a Kenyan perspective. We've seen guys who've been playing for quite a minute, but we don't actually get to where we need to be. And you hear people complaining that we have good talent, but it actually doesn't get featured on a national level or an international level. So maybe we might want to start investing in grassroots football and bring up some new talent that can actually lead this country to the AFCON kind of platforms. It's also important for us to take care of our players. You see, if you take care of your players, then they will be committed they'll be committed to driving a win for their country. I'll refer to Eugene's sentiment. The players complained, and I am not sure if someone actually listened, but taking care of your player is very key, because then they are the ones in the field. It's not you behind the scenes. They are the ones in the field. So you might want to actually pay some good attention to them, take care of them, whether it's financially, whether you're just offering some sort of support, that they don't feel like they're alone there out there in the field, out there, whatever it is, whichever platform they're playing in, whether it's AFCON, whether it's any other tournament. They don't feel alone. They have the support of both the country and the people that actually manage them. So for me, those are the key highlights. It wasn't all bad. At least we got it. It's been a tough period for sports with COVID. So it was nice to see football come back to life, and not just football, within other sport also come back to life. So that's a breath of fresh air. But there's still a lot to be done. In terms of sponsorships, definitely brands were hit hard when COVID hit. People lost their jobs and all that. So most people are trying to come back into the scene when it comes to sponsorship. So it was a good start. I understand some of these guys have signed long-term contracts. You see, Total Energies and all other partners had signed long-term contracts, but that also dictates that we have now an opportunity to bring back football in a bigger and better way. We have 2023 coming up, so it's also good to start planning for that. But I believe it's a good time to offer great support to the teams that actually take part in such tournaments and bring sport back to life in a bigger and better way. So that's, for me, my takeaway from this.
Okay. Moha, maybe as we are probably wrapping up this conversation, you are in Cameroon during some of the matches that were played. What are some of the key things that you probably learned from the whole experience?
Well, I'd say, given the fact that this is one of the major tournaments that has happened during this pandemic. I know we had Chan last year, but AFCON is huge. And the fact that COVID-19 safety measures were carried out properly this time was very commendable. Every journalist, every delegate that was attending, be it a press conference or training or a match, had to do COVID tests before attending a match or before attending a presser or training of any team. So that was commendable. And the fact that for any match day you had to go through the COVID-19 process, show that you've had your jabs before you wear a brace, showing that you've been cleared, stuff like that. So in terms of safety, it made you feel safe. in a way, in terms of matters COVID-19. Another thing I'd like to comment on is this is the first time VAR has been used from the group stages. I think the whole tournament in its entirety. And I feel African referees need to improve on how to use VAR. I feel like it was not used very well. We've witnessed a number of, I think we've had, if I'm not wrong, this is the record number of red cards we've had in an AFCON tournament. And most of these red cards have been intervened by VAR after the referee gave a yellow card. I mean, even Eugene can talk about that red card during the Ghana-Comoros game, Andre Ayew, which was weird again, how they interpret these fouls and stuff using VAR should improve. It's good that we're having tournaments in Africa that are using VAR now, but I feel we need to put, proper use of this technology, not just, for the sake, keep if a referee gives a yellow card, you say no. I feel it should be used for the reverse. If a referee gave a red card and maybe it's not a red card, of course, there's those instances where a referee might have missed a very dangerous tackle, then that's fine. But normal 50-50 tackle and stuff like that, I feel like it was a bit misused. So hopefully we can learn from it and improve. I have to also talk about safety in stadiums. I know Cameroon will partly have a dark cloud because of the 8 Cameroon fans that lost their lives during a stampede outside the Olembe Stadium during a match between Cameroon and Comoros. That's very sad. And, I think it was around 30-something more fans were injured. So hopefully with the future host nations that will be taking up hosting the African Cup of Nations and any other major competition need to also improve in safety of fans around the stadium. Not focus only on COVID-19 safety, just safety in general. Fans need to feel safe going with their families, with their kids to watch football matches, because after that incident, it was basically 50-50 in terms of reactions from locals in Cameroon. Most fans were saying they would rather not go back to Olembe and just watch the matches on TV, which is very sad. So hopefully we can improve as host nations in Africa. I know there's other major competitions coming up. There's Cote d'Ivoire next year. We even have the African Games in Accra next year as well. So some of these things, hopefully we get to improve on as well.
Okay. Eugene, maybe in 2 minutes as we wrap up, maybe what are some of the lessons that you think should be learned from this year's AFCON tournament?
Well, I think Mohamed has dealt with most of them. I had penciled down refereeing. I felt a lot of the referees were very violent and very forceful with their decisions. And I would like to commend the Ethiopian referee, Bamlak Tesema. I think he was one of the few referees who were reserved and calm. Even when he was trying to caution a player, he did it with a sense of calmness and a sense of gentility. And I feel that's one of the things they should look at. Also, the use of VAR. We saw the FIFA Club World Cup, and we saw within 3 seconds of a situation, the referee goes to check the VAR. In less than 10 seconds, everything's sorted out, and then the match continues. If it's a penalty, it's awarded. If it's not, it's cancelled. I felt that a VAR was not used to its maximum, and it looked like it was better if we didn't even use the VAR, because it's certain games. In the game Egypt versus Guinea-Bissau, for example, the goal Mama Balde score should have stood. Till date, I don't even understand that situation. The DDI situation, as for example, I don't think it was a red card as well. So I think VAR should be used properly. I also like to commend CAF for the first time giving us a female referee to also officiate Salima Bukasanga from, I think, Rwanda. It was great to see a female in the center of the action. I think it was a game like Zimbabwe-Guinea. It was nice to see a female. We think it needs to continue. We need to see more female African referees going and officiating world games for the whole world to see. I think what men can do, women can also do better. I think for me, the most important thing we've not talked about is about the pitch quality. I think Cameroon, the stadiums were really nice, but the pitch was terrible. Going into the next AFCON in Cote d'Ivoire, I think we should critically look at the pitch. I'm shocked these pitches were passed for football to be played on them. especially the Douala Stadium, where the Ivory Coast took on Sierra Leone. I remember that's what got the Ivorian goalkeeper injured, Badri Ali Sangari. He got him injured. The pitch was so bad. Sometimes when the start of the player touches the pitch, you see sand coming out of the grass. It was very poor for a pitch which is supposed to host Africa's best competition. I mean, that was a poor. That's one of the few things, negative things, CAF need to look at, the pitch quality. And I think the cameras for the VAR as well and the angling. When we had situations, the referees were given a still picture. He goes and just a still picture, so he cannot have the full understanding of the sequence of events that led to the incident that we are having a look at. So I think we need to really look at it, how the visuals are shown to the referee. And I think the angling, because most of the time a situation happens and there's only one angle. We cannot, those outside cannot have a full appreciation. Commentators do not know what's happening because they have not had maybe 3 or 4 different views of the situation. Then to have an understanding of what to tell their listeners or whoever is watching. So I think that should also be worked on, the camera angling, the pitch quality. And I think never again in Africa should we have a situation where there's a stampede in a match. I think heads must roll wherever that can happen in Cameroon. We need to find out the cause of the problem and solve it. So the pitch quality, the camera angling, the VAR, I think we need to see more females also officiating. And I think the security situation, never again should we have people die in their quest to just watch good football.